Welcome to the Cutting Edge Cosplay podcast, where your fellow geek girls hang out and talk all things cosplay. Today, we have a special guest host, professional photographer, Travis. You can also find him on Instagram as lost_ape7. So what's your story? How did you get into photography?
Jumping right in.
Yeah, let's just go. Yeah.
Originally I got into photography two reasons. One, I really like marine animals. And so, I think it was high school. I took a marine biology class and I really liked the color. And, I thought it'd be like super dope to just photograph underwater all the time.
So, if you really got into like marine photography, like what's your favorite animal?
Okay, so the jellyfish are actually super awesome to watch. They had an exhibit where they had changing lights in the background, and so I really wish I could remember which type of jellyfish these were. But anyways, the colors bouncing off of them are really awesome. And then they had the SpongeBob jellyfish, for lack of a better term. The little ones that they pulse. And
the cartoon-looking ones.
Yeah.
They actually do that in real life.
Oh, what?
So
yeah.
Love
it's
that.
an accurate TV show in some ways, apparently.
SpongeBob's a documentary. Have you seen like that movie where he comes on land and
I have. It's nightmare fuel.
Is that the one where he meets that superstar?
Are you talking about the one where there's like actual like live people, or is that like this?
that's the one I was talking
Okay,
about.
They
yeah,
have one
yeah.
they have one with live people.
David Hasselhoff.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. I'm like
And Courtney
superstar.
Love or something like that is on it. They're like real people on there.
Yeah.
It's weird. It was like a Christmas special kind of thing, but not really.
I thought it was like a movie because he had a movie. I saw a movie in the theaters.
Oh shit! We might be talking about different things.
We are, because there was a movie. I don't know there was a second.
There's more
another
nightmare
thing.
fuel. Okay, we're gonna have to
There's
swap
two
resources.
SpongeBob's with live action people in it.
Things we didn't know we needed until
Link
this
it to us.
very moment. Yes.
Okay,
No.
so-
Also,
So,
don't tag me in those.
But the second
Tag
would
only Rebecca.
besides jellyfish would be sea dragons.
That's a thing.
Sea dragons, as
Sea
opposed to
dragons.
seahorses or sea anything.
Yeah, seahorses are
See
small.
anything.
So sea dragons are about like yay big, and there's the leafy and the weedy sea dragons.
Oh, I've seen those.
Yeah, they used to have
Yes.
them at the Seattle Aquarium. I spent so much money there when I first started photographing on my, God, what was it? It was like one of those little JVC camcorders, right? You like take the button. And you're like,
Yes.
this is cutting edge. Go get my prints
Cutting edge
developed
cosplay.
at, it was the 1 hour photo at Walgreens, right?
It's like looks like floating kelp.
Yeah, right. Super awesome. So they used to have them over at the Seattle Aquarium, but they put both types in the same enclosure and found out that they don't get along, if I recall correctly.
Do they fight? They duke it
The
out?
territorial is what I was told.
So probably like angelfish. Those are territorial too.
Really pretty.
They rip each other's gorgeousness off.
Yeah, but besides the marine photography, I'm also extremely forgetful. And when I was 22, 23-ish, parties, I'd get pretty drunk and I'd forget things for about a week or two. And I found out, though, that if I started photographing during the party, I could remember quicker later on.
Clever.
So is that how you got into photographing people?
I think if I remember right, it started at my own parties, and then I started getting invited to friends' parties and just getting candids. And then I picked up my first professional camera. It was a Rebel T3i by Canon.
Cool.
And I got into doing candid photography a lot of the time at parties, and which is great. And then took the college online course, where it pushed you to do more things. One of the final projects was you had to do like 6 photos that tied into one story. And I have always loved Sideshow. I have a bunch of friends in Sideshow, and I want to say I did a sword swallower, bearded woman, the dancing dog, the woman with octopus tentacles. It really hokey. First big photo shoot that I tried to do. So like we got those tentacles that you get from Archie McPhee's. You know the little finger tentacles that like everyone seems to have now. And did it, of course, in heavy sepia tones.
Nice.
Slightly embarrassed about some of my stuff I started with.
So it
Same.
does kind of go back to the whole marine origin. So,
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Common thread.
The longer I've done this, because I've actually, besides cosplay, is also I will shoot with circus performers and like friends that I have. My best friend is a sword swallower, and so like I feel the original sword swallower photo I got is kind of a lie because it was just a broken plastic sword. You know, it's like cosplay equivalent, I guess. Not meaning to be rude about that. Like
No, con safe, plastic. Yes.
Yeah. And then getting to watch somebody, actually swallow a sword. And at the time, I think the first time I shot her doing that, she had 7 piercing needles down her neck.
What?
So I also did it for a couple of years. I used to work. I used to work as as a way to get me out of the house. I used to photograph hook suspension events and then local kink events in Seattle for I think 2-3 years. So there was a lot of that, hooks and piercings and odd stuff.
Help me clarify. Is this in her neck or on her neck?
It was through the top layer.
Okay, because like I was thinking sword swallowing, and I'm like, so there's like hoops inside of her throat to help
nice
guide the sword. And I'm
That
like,
would
no,
just
this can't
be
be
dangerous.
right. Okay, thank God. I was like, this doesn't sound right to me.
Over the top.
Yeah, that's dedication. So what was your first cosplay photography event?
I know that I went to one in Portland, but I don't know if I would count it as that. It was more of like walking around with the camera, seeing somebody whose, outfit you liked or whatever, and just getting photographs of them. But it wasn't in the same aspect that I guess I would do now. I felt more like I was a visitor to the con world who was just, I was touristing through. Honestly, I don't remember my first cosplay. I would keep going back to the woofle, the Woofenute.
Okay. So you met Bears.
We actually met through Butt Club, which is it was a nonprofit that I was a part of because basically their role was to kind of promote consent and consent awareness amongst performing communities. So cosplay was roped into it to a lesser degree, but it was also burlesque and stripping and wrestling and kind of anywhere where you might be in a position that consent becomes an issue. This group was there to kind of guide the conversation.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great to be a part of it. We went to a bunch of events. I mostly went to the different burlesque events and like we did little raffles and like little announcements and things like that. And Travis was at one of them taking photos of his friend who was also part of the group. Huh. And I found out that he was a photographer and I was like, we should shoot together because that's just how I am. And so
and we did have mutual friends too. On top of that.
Yeah, we had mutual friends as well. A couple who were already cosplayers who I knew from that and he knew from other things and it all came together perfectly. So in that situation, I asked him to shoot and I was a lot. So I'm glad that you were like down to do that. Just come on. I'm like, we should shoot. When are you free? And then I like make a date. I make a plan right then and there.
I like that though.
Yeah. No, that's why we're friends.
Do photographers like that? When like a model or a cosplayer or whoever, the subject takes initiative, says, hey, I want to work with you. Let's set a date.
So I don't want to speak for all photographers. So for myself, I prefer it just because with my day-to-day job, like I travel a lot and I am, again, forgetful. So I may not remember all of it because I don't have photos of you and I. But it's nice to set something out and have it set in stone. I know that for me, I like to have a rough idea of what we're going to do for a photo shoot because if we're not building the set together or like the location, we both kind of have an idea of where we're going towards, right? And so I think usually when Bears and I like discuss these things, it's what are some of the photos that you want with this? So that I have an idea of what they're looking for. Same thing I think goes in the reverse as well of what I may be looking for, especially if it's something that I'm wanting to do as well. Like wanting to do to build my own portfolio as opposed to just wanting to do it because it sounds like it's a blast. We did I'm going to mispronounce it, the Wooflesnoot.
Wolfanoot.
Wolfanoot.
I like Woofle Snoot better.
I do too. Close cousin.
Okay, so there is a post that comes up every so often on like our Tumblr or on Facebook or whatever. And it's this little snippet of like, oh, my kid invented this holiday called Wolfanoot. And it's basically a day. I was obsessed with wolves as a child. You have to know that.
Same.
And it's basically a day where the spirit wolf comes down and brings gifts to people who are nice to dogs. And like you make a moon cake, which is just a cake in the shape of a moon, to present to this wolf.
Wait, so does that mean it can be like the shape of a full moon, like a normal round cake?
Good point.
Okay.
Good
Pretty sure that's the
point.
kind of cake we used.
Okay.
We see
Doesn't have to be a
that's what we use.
Just trying to be
And it's
safe, I guess.
just this wolf spirit that comes and like rewards dogs and people who are nice to dogs. And so that's like
Love that.
my spirit. So we like, I dressed up like a little wolf spirit and we went out and we took a bunch of pictures. It was really fun.
So there was the sausage rope.
Yeah.
I don't remember except for doing the helicopter thing that you did where we lost a bunch of sausages to the wild. I don't remember
You were
why.
just gifting nature.
Yeah.
Oh, and then there was the what is it? There was a season's greeting card. So I have this habit. If I can make something funny, I will try, or just ridiculous. And there's one. It's a Happy Holidays card that I think I made, and it's what was it? A goblet of marinara, I believe. And
Oh yeah, it was like one of those like gravy boats full of marinara, and then like an elegantly placed out meatball array.
on a cutting board, I think.
It was
Like a
with ivy
charcuterie
all
board.
around.
Yes.
ivy all around. It was like beautifully shot. Oh, it was perfect. It's so ridiculous. I just love like, I'll do the regular photo shoots. Of course, I love all the regular characters, but every once in a while you're like, that just sounds fun. And so that's what this shoot was. This Wolfanoot one was like. And so I reached out to Travis because I knew that he's down to have like fun shoots too. Like he'll do
I'm just
the
like thinking of the food shoots I've shot, like the milk bath with dino bites instead of flowers one time.
Dream.
love it.
I mean, yeah, dino bites are amazing.
They're iconic.
Sometimes I don't understand how my brain works, but at one point in time, we went from wanting to do meaning me and the two models we worked with. There was an Elizabeth Bathory shoot after seeing a McFarland picture that we wanted to do. And so originally we were going to fill up somebody's bathtub with marinara sauce and do the little like, I think it was the chicken nuggets. Yeah, the dino chicken nuggets to dip in.
Yes.
Because of the tomato sauce, though, it was decided it wasn't very good for people's underbits.
That's
Fair
totally
point.
wise.
So we kept somehow transitioning this, and
I'm glad that was put into consideration.
Yeah. Instead of an after the fact situation where you're like, oh no.
Oops. Well, so we ended up landing on filling a bathtub full of spaghetti noodles. I love Reddit because you can find calculations for things. I just recently actually looked for the calculations, how many Skittles that I would need to fill up a bathtub. This has become a thing now, by the way. where it
Bathtubs
just-
full of food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
food, I think everybody, it's fun to play with because it's the texture thing. I will say to fill a bathtub up halfway, it's 32.5 pounds of uncooked spaghetti. Winco is your friend for things like this because of the bulk bins.
Okay, so is this like a standard bathtub or are we talking about like a clawfoot or something like?
So we tried to find a clawfoot. We weren't able to. We had a friend who had a place that was less than stellar. And so it was one of those old like 60s bathtubs, I'd say, with the Pepto-Bismol pink, right? So just a standard bathtub.
Yeah.
3 hours. It took me 3 hours to fill that bathtub with all of these noodles.
Oh my gosh.
And it was so warm in that bathroom. And there was 3 of us.
Steamy.
Whole new definition for it. Oh my gosh.
It's fun when you're able to kind of like let the creativity start going. Because there are lots of different types of photographers. There's the ones that are kind of more creative. There's the ones that want you to come in with a plan yourself. There's the ones who kind of are like ready to do the collaboration kind of thing of like, you come in with a couple of ideas, but I'm also going to come in with a couple of ideas kind of things.
Yeah. Totally.
How would you start that conversation with your model, I guess, of like, we're going to be a little bit more creative with it?
If it's somebody new, I try to kind of meet them beforehand just to talk and maybe have coffee or something like that. It's and the first shoots I've now started where they're going to be easy shoots. So it's nothing too involved because then you know kind of how you work with the other person. Because both the photographer and the model can be amazing, but if they don't work well together, you can kind of see that. At least that's my thought. And I'm always the fan of the collaboration so that we're both invested in what we're shooting because you can really see that in the eyes if you pay attention. So yeah, I mean, I usually just try to have an open conversation and it is again, communication of like, what are you looking for? What are some poses you're kind of thinking about? And then discussing the fact that, you're open to just kind of like winging it almost of the, let it evolve naturally because that's when you get some of the good stuff. Again, like with the Woofanoot, did say it right this time?
That was right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
We didn't originally
Cheers.
plan to have bears swing around the sausage rope.
That was not part of it.
No, and I think that was like right before we finished up, where it was just like, hey, let's see where this goes,
try this.
and just keep going. And that's I don't know. I don't want to do that hoity thing of like the creative process. You just kind of let your brain go. A lot of the times I find that like the stuff that you overdo anyways ends up over exaggeration makes it look normal on photography.
True.
And so like if you're goofing around and you're having fun with it, you're also more invested. You're not worrying too much about like, is the camera getting my good side? Like, should I be tilting up a little bit more so my chin's, in a good spot type of thing? You're in the moment and that's, it shines through really well.
Well, because I think that goes right into kind of what I'm curious about in terms of how do you pick a photographer for the style of the picture that you're looking for? Because sometimes it's like happy-go-lucky, like just play around, see what happens. Sometimes it's like we need to recreate this exact photo from this exact movie. And like how do you know, models and photographers alike, how do you know who to choose? What is a good partnership?
The communication part of it is kind of the number one thing.
Yeah.
Like if I'm as the model, I want to be like, I want to recreate this picture. It's then on the photographer, I guess, to be like, I don't think that I'm interested in doing that. Or yes, I absolutely can do that, but let's talk about the specifics and like which parts must be there and which parts can we kind of nudge, because the real world isn't always like comic books or movies.
Are you saying people can't do those poses that you see on the front of comic books?
Shocking, right?
I try every single shoot to nail these freaking poses, and for some reason, I'm physically not capable of.
Well, you can like low key injure yourself. Like I've had photographers like try to recreate exact comic book poses, and I'm like, that's not anatomically possible. But they're like, just try. And then I'll try get as close as I can, and then it's like, oh, hold that for 2 minutes while I move the light, but don't like get out of the position. And I'm like, my muscles are shaking. I can't do this anymore. And so at some point, reality and the ideal image need to have some sort of an agreement.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely say take a look at their work that they've done, in the past, and just ask them honestly if they are feeling that they're willing to do it, and I'm usually down to try anything. I think when we shot together, hadn't really shot that style that you guys were looking for the
KDA for baddest.
Yeah.
And that one kind of evolved too, where we started adding in like the smoke machine and the different lights.
Yeah.
And I think we got what you guys wanted.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
We nailed
He
it.
says with hesitation.
We'll pop up some pictures from the shoot too, but it was perfect.
Yeah, we nailed the vibe on that one. That was great.
And I love bloopers, like both party approved bloopers. Like I don't want it to be absolutely truly terrible. But when you let loose and you have a good relationship with your photographer, you can do some goofy photos and get some great behind the scenes shots. Or if you have a photographer you really trust, you can be like, hey, I'm just going to like play around with some poses that I don't know if they'll work, but let's just see. And sometimes they're trash and sometimes they're incredible. And I would never try those things if I didn't trust the photographer.
When I shoot events, for some reason, I get into the habit of asking people to just do those ridiculous poses.
Yeah.
So like the Sears catalog, senior portrait poses. I love getting that one. The Sears catalog is usually one person has their hand on the other person's shoulder.
Yes.
And what's amazing is that they're so ridiculous. You get into it, right? And sometimes like they come out and you're just like, okay, like, I shouldn't like any of this, but this is kind of awesome.
This is working.
Like the 90s sitcom intros where you're doing whatever and then all of a sudden like look up like it's nothing.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah, actually, I think so. It's my roommates currently. We've discussed doing the old Sears portraits, right? Yes. Where everyone's in the cardigan sweaters, and it's like the three of us and our dog. Just
yes, 100%. Just
finger guns.
But I would say communication is actually the key, and kind of being honest about what. It can be difficult. It's like both parties being honest about what they think they can do and can't do, because some of this stuff is kind of impossible, or you need somebody who's not just a photographer, but it's more of an editor.
Yeah, like a Photoshop artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because like if I tried to put a dragon in a photo, actually I did do this once.
I stretched that.
Yeah. When I did put a dragon in a photo.
Sorry, not dragon, dinosaurs. So I was shooting
Nugget form?
No, real.
Yes.
So I have this picture. I was working with the clown, Smokey Brown, and there's a picture of her looking very sad with her open parasol and just like really sad. And I decided that it was funny enough to try and just put really different backgrounds in the back. So there's one with a bunch of like Jurassic Park dinosaurs, the world ending. Anyways, it looked horrible. Like the stuff you did when you were in 4th grade, on MS Paint.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be like, yeah, you know what? We're going to get that dragon for you.
Right.
Because it's just going to look bad. Unless that's the goal. Because sometimes,
Sometimes you want campy.
Sometimes bad is fun.
Yeah.
Like funny.
Oh yeah, no, campy is great.
great.
Yeah. Huge fan of campy, actually.
Me too. Yeah. It all just depends what you're looking for, though. Like, if you want that movie poster replication kind of a thing where, like, you're Scarlet Witch and you want the little magic things or whatever, then you might want somebody who either is comfortable with their raw photo being shared with someone who's a Photoshop artist or someone who does both and having some sort of agreement of, okay, what are the editing rules for this? Can't hurt to talk about it. It goes to that communication.
Yeah.
So if you're reaching out, so I'm just thinking about planning a shoot now, because are there any like yays and nays for somebody reaching out to you for a shoot? Like if somebody said this, would it be like a yikes, I'm not working with that person kind of thing? Or is it kind of like more?
Travis just did a great face.
You mean like if they were just to reach out and like, hey, I have this idea.
Yeah, out of the blue, you've never met this person before. And they're like, I'd love to work with you. Or would there be any red flags for you?
If I'm going to work with somebody and I haven't met them before and like this is my first interaction, usually if we're in a similar community of some sort, I will reach out to friends to find out like, is this person legit? There is also same thing with photographers, by the way. I've had friends who are like, hey, have you ever worked with this photographer? What do you think about them? Yada, yada. That's always a really great way to go instead of just kind of working on gut instinct. Yeah, I mean, I have no problem working with new people if the idea is interesting. I mean, I do this as it's a hobby for me more than anything. Like it's a fun hobby, but I can't devote 40 plus hours a week to photographing. So it's, for me, is this interesting and fun?
That's actually a great point of like reaching out to people. 'Cause I know I personally have a small group of cosplayers that I talk to all the time. Obviously, Bunny and Rebecca are some of them. And if I work with somebody, like right after the shoot, I'll text out to my small group, like, hey, just worked with so-and-so. It went really well, FYI. And if I know that somebody has worked with a photographer that I'm thinking about before I reach out to that photographer, I'll reach out to the person I know that they've worked with before. Like, you get this from me all the time too, of like, how do they shoot? How do they shoot? Like, what kind of, what's going to be expected of me? Yeah. Like, do they want me to come ready with poses? Is it going to be like a hangout kind of thing? Like, what do they need? Because I don't want to go into a shoot and then embarrass myself and make it difficult for the photographer. I say this, but we just did a photo shoot. You and I just did a photo shoot, and I did not come prepared, and I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I don't think I did either.
But see, so it's fine.
Well,
but see, that's the kind of thing of like, we have a relationship already going into it where my feelings aren't hurt and your feelings aren't hurt kind of thing, but we know each other.
We talked about doing it as a hangout kind of shoot thing. And then like we hung out at the 8-bit and then ended up towards the end, because we couldn't get the right shots. There were so many people there. And then there's always the people that are just sitting and staring, which kind of makes it awkward sometimes. Yes. But I happen to have a pinball machine and all of my lighting gear back at my house. So,
we just went back to his house. And
Perfect.
We were like, let's ditch this place.
Let's blow this popsicle stand.
And I would say if they have if the photographer has an Instagram page or Facebook page, you can reach out to the models that are tagged in there and talk to the models directly. It's
a good idea.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if other photographers do a meet and greet, but I always think like a meet and greet is great because you can kind of gauge the person. Is this going to be a fun experience? Am I going to be awkward around this person? Going back to the previous question too, is like, everything is evolving anyways. And so like, you may not be a good fit this time around, but maybe in 6 months, once you both, have worked on certain things, or maybe you feel better in about 6 months. It's all evolving. Sorry, going back to the sometimes it's okay to take a chance on somebody who doesn't do tons of like heavy editing, because they could surprise you. I surprise myself all the time.
Love that.
Yeah, I work with a couple of photographers that don't do a lot of heavy editing, and they just shoot different. And that's fine.
Yeah, it's not worse or better to have like Photoshop skills. It's just a skill set. And a lot of the people that I work with who are not Photoshop artists have beautiful portraiture skills and like photo editing skills, or they give back a lot of photos and kind of let you pick and choose, or there's a lot of benefits for any person that you work with. It's just a matter of knowing what each person's strength is.
That does bring up a really good point though, is I would talk to the person about how heavy they edit faces, because there are certain models that I work with who they want the full natural look. And then some people want all blemishes taken away. So that's always good to know too, especially if you are, your own brand. Like I know for me personally, if somebody is their own brand, there's a lot of creative control there because you have stuff set up specific way. And, if we don't mesh because I don't really do what you're looking for, then I'm going to suggest somebody else that is probably better, to help with your needs, as it were. So,
but I remember when we did our KDA Baddest shoot, like one of the first things Travis asked was, are there any blemishes, scars, etc., that you specifically don't want in the shot or do want in the shot? Because some people have like a birthmark or like a mole or something that is very signature for who they are. And some people edit it out and then you're like, oh, that's weird because that's not me. Or some people don't edit it out and they're like, oh, that's my biggest insecurity. But you don't know unless you ask. And so I appreciated you asking that.
Yeah. I mean, I try when everybody, the end result is that we're both happy with what is done. Especially if we're, making it so that we can work together again in the future. Yeah. Because again, everyone's changing. There's new things that could happen. And it's.
Do you have a preference of shooting indoors or outdoors?
It kind of depends on the type of shoot, I guess. Lately I've been going on this whole like outdoor kick, but I haven't been doing. Actually, I haven't done portraitures in about a month or so. I've been actually photographing mushrooms all over the place.
Nice.
Perfect.
Or so cute.
Raccoons.
Raccoons.
Oh, raccoons. Oh God.
Yeah.
Their hands. I hate it. I hate it so much.
They're so cute though.
They're so creepy.
And they keep them clean.
Raccoon itself is cute, but their hands are creepy. And so they kind of wash each other out, and I'm like raccoon neutral. Their faces are cute and their hands terrify me. They're so creepy.
Yeah.
Like, they're so cute.
You probably would have been freaked out then. Like last week, I think it was over at Point Defiance and hanging out with the raccoons and letting them get like one of the raccoons actually like tap on my phone to see if it was food.
It's the tap test.
Yeah, wouldn't be into that. Would not be into that.
I mean, I stood up because you never know, but you know.
True. Snakes I can do. Raccoon hands I cannot do.
But they just look like little zombie hands.
They're like too human though. They're so weird.
Yeah.
Bunny and Rebecca are making the same point, but Rebecca's like, hate that about them.
Like, it's so cute. They're clean.
Bunny's like, that's the redeeming factor.
I matched
like, that is not the
their
redeeming
eyes
factor.
with my makeup. It's fine.
It's their cursed factor.
Yeah, I would say
Bandits.
Indoor though, you have a bit more control because you're not worried about external light sources, or you can control it more. But I don't know. For a lot of shoots, I prefer not using lights if I can. If I can get away with using whatever the natural lighting is, like that's great. One of my favorite shoots that I've done so far, which was sort of cosplay, I guess. What is her name? Cassandra Dunn did a bunch of drawings of ghoul pinups, and like I freaking love pinups. So there's one that she has where it's a pinup who has a pumpkin head, right? So we shot this. Tudaloo and I shot this in a backyard, basically in like a forested area in like 8 o'clock at night, something like that. Super cold. It was middle of December, I think. Okay. It was raining and like lights, like two small little handheld lights to do all of this lighting. And still one of my favorites because it came out in the style that I was trying to go for, which was really nice.
That kind of vintagey, spooky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it was a lot of fun to like carve the pumpkin up to like look how it was supposed to look. But yeah, no, I prefer outdoors. But I've had to spend a lot of time outside of a studio. And so you get kind of accustomed to it. Also, with a lot of the traveling that I do, I'm outdoors a lot anyways. So, you stick with what you're comfortable with, I guess.
Fair enough. Bears and Bunny, do you have a preference for indoor and outdoor? Like photographers might have a preference. Do you have a preference as models?
I feel like there's a lot more to play with outside.
Environment and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough.
But again, it kind of goes back to the character. So I kind of go with whatever makes the most sense for the character. So like my Snow White, for example, wouldn't make sense inside because it's like an armored Snow White that's like kind of more forest animal, rugged, like.
But what if she's storming the castle?
Could be.
Wait, would she be storming her own castle?
She's the princess.
She could storm someone else's castle.
She was kind of exiled in a way. So she could just be taking back her fort.
I'm here for it.
I don't know. I think that the vibe is more outdoorsy though for her. And maybe a castle.
Or a small hut filled with dwarves.
Yeah.
That's right. If I know 7 people who want to play armored dwarves, we can do a shoot and be inside of a small hut.
And hit up bears. Set up a shoot. Bears.
Yeah. But like the KDA ones kind of feel like they should be more inside or at the very most outdoorsy, like the city streets.
Right.
I don't know if you think of them as champions though. They all play
in the jungle and the legends.
That's a good differentiation though, because in the game, it's jungle. Yeah. But in the music videos, they're only indoors. I'm trying to remember all of their music videos. Yeah. Which I guess it's covered. Yeah. Underground. In all of the music videos, they're indoor in some capacity. So I think you're right. It just depends on the character because Ayla the Huntress from Skyrim would not be inside. Right. But also like if I'm doing a high fashion thing or if I'm doing something that just, I don't want to get it dirty, then I'm probably going to go indoors. Also depends on the weather because we're in the greater Seattle area and it rains a lot. And it can be really cold and last summer it can be really hot for some unknown reason. And so knowing what the weather's going to be like can be a deciding factor too. And I have a circulatory disorder, Raynaud's phenomenon, so I can't be outside in the cold for that long unless I want severe pain. And so I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do an outside shoot, I need to know what the weather's going to be. I need to time limit it. So I limit it to either 30 minutes to an hour, and that's it. And usually that's fine. We can just like be very direct and like shoot, go. But
that's a fast
things
shoot.
to know. Yeah. That is a fast shoot compared to inside where we can just hang out. Yeah, it's great.
Well, and I'm with Bears on this one. Like it does depend on what you're shooting as to whether you're inside or out.
Yeah.
And speaking of dangerous weather, we also have windstorms from time to time.
So true. Yeah. Oh,
Bears and I shot
Example A. Check out my plague doctor.
Oh no! What happened during that one?
We went
the
out
pictures
to
are
this,
amazing, by the way.
True.
Thank you. They came out great. Thank you. We went out to like this abandoned
northern state state hospital grounds, but not the hospital. This was the
the farm,
the dairy farm. So it's a huge park where people go and play disc golf at.
Yeah.
But you can look on the outside of all of these structures. They suggest that you don't go inside because, it's old, rickety, and could
very
fall.
structurally
Unsound.
unsound.
Best places to get pictures.
They're
at, though. I feel
it was
like.
so cool.
Like I've been on some rickety places.
Yeah, I will say definitely if you're going to try to go to places that it's not illegal for you to do in locations that are sketchy, or you maybe, have a plan.
Yeah, have a plan for sure.
Also,
So maybe not your like spiky stilettos for running through the mud or whatever.
See, there was
you bring tennis shoes.
Oh, yeah.
And you change, right?
Yeah. Flip flops.
Yeah.
However, for this shoot that we're talking about, we were not in flip flops or tennis shoes.
They were like tall, thick, like boots, right?
Yeah. So I did kind of like a cutesy version of a plague doctor, and we went out to this abandoned dairy farm, and we were taking all these awesome pictures. It was like pre-storm for as long as I could tell. So like the sky was gloomy and dark and like kind of gray, and which was great for this shoot. And then we were playing with smoke things for the first time that I've ever done it.
Okay, so you had these smoke canisters, and
Yeah.
you were in this costume that obviously wasn't good for getting away if you were potentially doing something illegal.
So
she wasn't.
it wasn't illegal. So
Legally,
I had like
don't break the law.
Yeah.
I had
we
these
weren't trespassing at this one.
tall heels, and like there were pumps with heels, and it was great. They were really cute. And then I had my plague doctor mask, which I had drilled some holes in the bottom so that I could breathe through it, and it like strapped to my head, had a little hat. And I really thought that the holes that I had drilled in it would be enough, and they were enough on all my tests. But as I was walking around and breathing in this mask, it would like fog up the eyeballs.
Oh,
So
yeah.
after about 20 minutes or so, we're going from location to location. I was like literally blind. It's like,
No.
And if I recall, you couldn't hear very well either, right?
No, because
Was
like
it-
the mask and the hat and everything were kind of like holding everything down, right?
I could hear you guys.
Maybe it was the other way around. 'Cause of the
Yeah.
way the mask-
I don't think you could hear me.
Because she was talking through little holes.
I was talking through the beak. And so like we were going from place to place, and like it's hot in there, and I can't see, and I'm just like, hope I look all right. And we get to like one final location, and like I could hear like clattering, and I was like, is this a safe area? And I'm like looking around, like willing my eyelashes to be long enough to wipe the eyeballs.
like windshield wipers.
Then
Yes.
it's not working. But I hear all these like, I'm like, is this okay? And Travis was like, yeah, it's fine. They're just metal things covering the windows. It's fine. And I was like,
believe it was the roof. not to
the roof was doing.
not to correct.
good. Oh, good.
I was like,
the roof is covering the windows. It's fine.
Oh no
it's
no
fine.
no! It was like this metal shingle thing of like,
yeah.
but it was flapping quite a bit.
But it was like
Oh,
making
boy.
some horror movie noises.
but it wasn't as bad as it got. Is the thing.
So
Oh my
then
God.
I'm sitting there. I've got like a lantern and a smoke thing, and just trying to like look spooky. And I can see sort of like I can see light and like gray figures where my husband and Travis are moving around. So I could see that he's taking pictures. And like, I'm just like kind of moving from angle to angle. And I see like both gray figures just kind of stop moving. And I was like, and like straighten up as if maybe they stood up and were no longer taking pictures. And I was like,
oh God.
Like,
I mean, did something break? Like, what's going on? Because I had like all these belts and I had some garlic things and some nets that were very tenuously in there. I was like, did I lose all my garlic? Like, what's happening? And then I hear like, oh, no, it's fine. Keep going. And like, I see like tentatively somebody starts taking pictures again. And then like the wind has been a constant this whole time. So I'm not even mentioning it, but it did do like a whoo. And then everybody stopped again. And I was like, no, really, God. You have to tell me if I'm doing something wrong. And they're both like, we might have to go. And I was like, what does that mean?
So we were stopping because her husband kept saying stuff to me. Remember this?
I couldn't hear that.
So
part.
yeah, he was like, hey, so we might want to check out the wind. And we're inside. It's like, it's super dark too in the little barn structure we were in. But I think it was the first time is when he was like, yeah, take a look outside in the trees. We're kind of doing one of these for a little bit.
Oh, no.
Off and on.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
For those only listening, it went from like a 90-degree angle to like a 30-degree angle.
Like 45 or less.
More or less. Yeah.
I'm probably exaggerating
Oh
a little
God.
bit, but it was at least 45 degrees.
It felt like 45 degrees or less.
I mean,
yeah.
it was
Just very
arching.
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Plus, the wind was so heavy; it was pushing the smoke around. We weren't getting, quite exactly what we were hoping for. Smoke's fun.
And so they're like, okay, so we should probably stop and get back to the car. Yeah. And so I'm like a little hesitant to take off my mask because it's kind of difficult to get the whole like hat and cloak and things scenario put back together once I take the mask off. I was like, are you sure? And they're like, I could see their little gray
nods.
Their outlines.
Okay. And so I take off my mask and the rain is horizontal. The wind is like, I can't even believe there was even still trees on the ground. Like the
things we do for
on the
art.
ground, just the top of it was instead of the bottom.
I was like looking around, like the battering on the top. I was looking around at all the other buildings too, and the doors were opening in the direction of the wind. It was nuts. I was like, oh, we gotta go. Okay.
Ignorance was bliss there for a little bit.
So we're trying to get back. I'm in these ridiculously tall shoes for the weather that we have. We have an umbrella because we did know that it was going to be kind of rainy.
Umbrella doesn't work with the wind, though. That's why no one uses them around here.
Also, guess what happened?
For comedy, it does work.
Good point.
And that's exactly what happened. So we started going down, and like my husband is holding the umbrella over my head, and he flips it open and immediately goes whoosh, inside out the wrong direction. We're like,
It's 2 miles down the road that way.
I'm like trying to hold my mask in one hand and like make it down because there's no way to where we were other than this really steep stone staircase. And I can't really see where my feet are because of the way that my outfit is. So I was like hobbling down like a newborn calf down these wet, windy stairs, trying to get to the car. Oh my gosh, it was a disaster. And then, of course, by that time it had been raining almost the whole shoot. So there was like mud and puddles, and I was like, we might not make it. We lived. We survived.
Thank God.
And got amazing pictures out of it. So.
It was nuts.
Yeah, there's like one or two.
Great pictures. That was a great shoot.
Make sure you all feel safe in situations like
Safety
that.
is so important.
Definitely,
Always.
I get overexcited about things a lot. And sometimes, when two people have shared energy. So this is why it's good to have like a third person too, is that voice of reason or your grounding post.
Your
Who's just
Jiminy
like,
Cricket.
hey man, like this looks really cool and all, but we could die. It's
Casual.
Yeah.
Well,
True.
I'm that same way. I'm like, but I'm having a good time right now, and we're getting some great shots. So maybe we just stay.
Yeah, it's like, oh, one more for the photo. This is it. I can feel it. And you're like, no, that's going to break. Yeah, it's going to end really badly.
But yeah, so like that's the thing though.
So that's
would,
another helpful way of
Good
having
tip.
a friend on board.
Yeah.
Well, and not just that is like, you know, if you're not feeling comfortable with it for any other reason, like, I would think being able to call it at any time is great. I do that with anybody that I work with. There's also a point where and I have no better way to say this. Like, it's not bored. It's I run out of ideas, right?
Sure.
Or you run out of things where it's just like, I think we're done, right?
Yeah.
And for me personally, like I try not to push past that too much. Because I've found in you know, after that I don't really, neither one of us really cares for the photos afterwards. And, you know, usually if a model calls it early, like I'm actually okay with that. Cause you know, usually we've got at least a couple of shots. And so like, I would always say definitely pay attention to that feeling, you know, because it does seem to show up, you know, on digital.
Yeah.
Film.
It translates over.
Yeah.
And everybody's different, mind you, but from my experiences, it's always when you're wanting that collaborative feel, if you're not both, you know, into it, it's gonna definitely show, you know.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So for Bunny and Rebecca, because I'm terrible at this, is being the one to be like, okay, I think we got it. We're done now, right? How do you call a shoot?
So I'm normally like the first one in the group where I'm just like, okay, I'm done. Like they're even like, I did a Valentine's Day shoot with Danny and her husband. I hit a point where I was just like, I don't have any more ideas. Like I'm done. But then like you could tell that at that point, I'm already kind of like, I'm over it and checked out and like emotionally spent. Like we're just like, okay, like these photos aren't going to be as good. Like we still got a ton of amazing photos, but I was just like, I just want to pull my eyelashes off and like undo my face right now. I just want to go home.
Yes.
Can I put some sweats on?
I'm hungry. I'm thirsty.
Yeah. And so just being able to like know your limits is definitely a big thing because like you said, it's obvious when like you're not fully invested anymore, the photos aren't as good at that point. So
I totally agree. I think it's, you know, your health and safety have to come first. If you haven't eaten, like Bears and I have talked about this too, especially if we're doing a photo shoot where our midriff is showing, we don't want to have a big breakfast right beforehand. We feel bloated. It may or may not transfer to camera, but we feel like that, which can transfer to camera. Our feeling can. And so we might not eat before a shoot. And if you're running on fumes, eventually that's going to show. Yeah. And there's at some point where you have to say, my health is more important right now. We need to wrap this up because I need to like eat today. And you should be able to do that. And also, you know, agreed, if you run out of ideas, if you're just like, I think I'm good, I'll check in with the photographer and be like, I think I got what I am looking for. Did you get everything you're looking for? Yeah. And if they say, oh, one more thing, I'm like, great, let's do it. But that kind of lets them know that you're wrapping up so that they can kind of meet you on that same path. And you can do that in a bunch of different ways. It just depends on your relationship with the photographer, but they should listen to you and you should listen to them.
And I would definitely say like bring snacks with.
Yeah.
Even like trail
and water.
mix.
And water definitely.
Don't trust that it's going to be available where you're going or that somebody else is going to cover for you.
Yeah.
And
I don't think I've ever gone to a shoot where the photographer brings snacks for me. So don't expect that at all.
Thinking if I have, I'm not sure. Yeah, good point. Come prepared, and if there's extra,
bring your own
hooray.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too with calling it too is you know, if you're not feeling it the night before, I don't know for other photographers, but for myself, like I'm always if you're not feeling it and you don't think you're going to feel it tomorrow, like let me know. Like let's not waste each other's time. Same thing for me. If I'm not feeling it, I may call and be like, yay. So I need to reschedule, like kind of having a day, you know, and the sooner the better because with the way that certain shoots are, I know that the times we've done it, like that's 3-4 hours, like not counting drive time and just like kind of hanging out and like getting comfortable, you know, and that's a half a day, you know, and if somebody sets aside this time for you, like be respectful of that. And it seems really ridiculous to say, but I don't know how many times I've gotten calls like 10 minutes before, like, hey man, not going to be able to make it. Again, communication, like being respectful of each other's time. And
yeah, it's a great point.
Understanding.
Yeah, life happens sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And it happens to both sides. You know, it doesn't just happen to photographers and models, it happens to literally everyone. And so if you can call it as soon as you can,
Yeah.
great. Or even if you say like, I have a bit of a sore throat, I'm hoping it's just like I didn't drink enough water today. I'll let you know as soon as possible in the morning. Like that's at least a little bit of a heads up. But like if you're sick, don't shoot, obviously.
Right.
You can see that in the shots.
Yeah.
Well, especially with COVID right now too.
Yeah.
Like if you're
Exactly.
feeling sick,
Then like really don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm talking like the before times.
Yeah. But I'm saying, you know, like with
Yes.
with it now too, I do know that I had somebody who at the start of it, I was being very hesitant about who I worked with. Like I stayed within my pod. I had only, I think it was like the 3 same models that I worked with the first year. And they were people I hung out with regularly. And I might have had a couple more. But I had somebody who reached out and I was down to shoot with them at first. But then every time I saw one of their like Instagram stories, they were out and about with a ton of people without their mask on. This is before more things were known and vaccines and everything like that. So I was very much like
Early days,
yeah. Yeah, the early days of the not before times.
The early COVID times. Yeah.
The early days of
The unknown days.
But it was
like the beginning of a book.
day
It could be, honestly.
of the year.
Oh,
of
it
the early
probably
days.
will.
It probably will be. Yeah.
But you know, I called it at that point where it was more like I didn't feel safe or, you know, as trusting of them because I didn't know them as well. And it's like, if this is what you're showing online, you know, I have, it's not just me, which I don't worry as much about myself. It's the people that I interact with.
Yeah.
And some of those people were immunocompromised at the time. And so it's like, I'm not taking, you know, any chances on it. And hopefully when it's said with enough time, there's no anger, like slight hurt feelings. Like that's understandable, right? But you can always
Sure.
reschedule,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
unless it's something very specific, like Easter themed, Woofanood, Christmas.
Whatever.
One thing you do not do is cancel a shoot and not tell the other person about it. Because guess who drove over an hour to a photo shoot?
Oh, you told me about this.
And I got to the location and I was like, hey, where are you? And they didn't respond for like 45 minutes. I was just like hanging out at the spot we were supposed to be, all suited up, all excited.
So I would say, though, I know that there are several models I've worked with where the only contact information we had was either Facebook Messenger, which is fine, or just on Instagram. I do try to trade phone numbers because there are locations that I've shot at that there is no data, but you can make a phone call. I do understand, though, the concerns with some of the people that I work with, not wanting to give out their phone number to somebody that they don't really know. And there's always like, I think Google Voice, you can get like a internet phone number. I don't know if it works entirely the same.
Yeah.
But then you have a phone number that you can give out to people that you're going to work with. That's not your actual phone number that you can change pretty easily if you need to.
Interesting.
That's true.
Just
I've
as a
never
thought
heard of that
there.
before.
I've never used it, but I've heard about it and it works.
I have, for several reasons, I've started prop building, which we were talking about with Bear's husband. Bear's husband and I were discussing some stuff because I recently refinished a cabinet to turn it from like 80s style gross to like this mid-century modern, like, super well lit, and it has 3 stars on it, and like did all the hand lining, like the trim myself in gold.
Yes. So cool.
I did this just so that I could have a place to put all of my skulls and the little raccoon hand that I have.
He does have a
I do. It's got its middle finger up.
Yeah.
That's a little bit better, but still weird.
So with the cosplay photography stuff is like, I would prefer not to shoot at a con because that's more of event photography, in my opinion. And for like, and events are fine. I like events, but I think that like, if you're in, you know, whatever cosplay you're in, it would be great to have a scene that matches it. And the problem is that sometimes that's a lot of work, right? Or like I get an idea, again, back to the whole loving the retro idea. I love the old campy, like 50s, 60s era movies, right? And so I want to do like a nicely piss poor done photo shoot of like space babes, right?
Nice.
And
Volunteer as trip.
I could do
Give
the
me a
makeup.
helmet and a suit. Let's go. Is this our next themed shoot?
Hell yeah.
I'm sensing
Well,
a
okay,
theme here.
so-
Hold on.
Lining your shoes.
He's like, back up.
So I don't know if you guys saw, I made a bio helmet, right? One night I had a friend I was going to work with, and I got this light dome and learned how to cut I think it's polycarbonate. But anyways, like cut out the hole and I created this whole like biodome, space helmet. Got to do that.
ASMR.
Yeah.
Talking about space helmet.
Speaking to you from
So I made this space helmet.
In space.
Learned a lot. I actually, at the time, I was living with some SoCal cosplayers. So here I am in our garage, right, building this bio helmet or this biodome helmet with stuff I got from Michael's. So like all the little flora and fauna, and then I had to run to like the 24-hour Walmart because I didn't know what I could attach to the inside of this dome that could also hold all the flowers and stuff that I was putting in there. And there's that green like what is it? It's the green for making floral arrangements. You'll see
Yeah,
it.
that green foam.
Yeah,
Just like
yeah.
florist's foam kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly, right?
That's what I used for my harness for Ari's tail. If anyone's curious,
Well, it's
there you
really
go.
solid, and I
Yeah.
didn't know, and it
you can just poke
Yeah,
things
it's
into it if you need
dense.
to.
you can, but it crumbles if you cut it. Right, is what I figured out. A little too late. So I went and found a pool noodle. Pool noodles are amazing.
Yes. Lightweight.
Yeah, and then I had to learn a couple of cosplay tricks to build this thing. So, anyways, I built this thing in like 8 hours. Got a couple hours of sleep. Drove over from LA to Arizona to do this space shoot. And long story short, I've started building props for my shoots, so that way it feels more put together, not just like cosplayer in front of a wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only time I think that would be good is like post-apocalyptic X-Men, right? That storyline where Sentinels have killed almost everyone.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work for everybody, and it's cool to take photos of people at cons again, but it'd be super awesome that like, with your KDA shoot, that's the one with the sleepover, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys were all in that costume, but you were just like in front of a wall, it wouldn't
make sense.
It wouldn't, it wouldn't feel as nice as it does where, you're having a sleepover type of thing. And so like, but personal opinion.
Yeah. Playing rock bands and doing pillow fights and
Like honestly, Danny did a lot of detail work. Like she even like framed photos of our characters and like cute poses together. Like we lived there and everything.
printed
like,
magazines.
Yeah,
Like,
super
was the
detailed,
KDA
like the
sorority
sparkles and the balloons, and like, yes, this is how we live our life. like,
No, and it looked great. And I think too, like with stuff like that, it helps you, says the guy who sits behind the camera. It helps you fall into what the character is, right?
100%.
It's a lot easier.
It makes a
to,
huge difference.
Well,
Yeah.
it helps get rid of that whole idea of what do I do with my hands? If you have a prop and you have like an environment to interact with, because if you have a bed, you're going to do a pillow fight, which means your hands are occupied. And like if you're doing rock band, like you are doing rock band, you're not just like
or videotaping.
right, exactly. Props are so helpful for that.
Well, and I use props for that reason. A lot of times it is very helpful. As someone who has no idea what to do with their hands, but there are videos you can find on YouTube as well, on what to do with your hands, poses and stuff like that.
True.
And your photographer can help you, but sometimes we are learning. Not everybody has. Oh man, I'm going to go into like D&D stuff here, but like my
We're here
stats,
for it.
a
We're all here
photographer's
for it.
stats may be like high on their editing, but not so high on like, so I wasn't always good at model direction. That's what I was thinking about. But yeah, sometimes you're good with your editing, but somebody may not be as good at model direction. And you may love their work. And this goes back again to like finding out how well you work with somebody, doing the practice, poses and things like that to be more into it. But with the hands, there's a lot of videos where you can figure out what to do with your hands. The one thumb in the pocket trick,
Or belt loop.
yeah. You can also
Or
do the
what
Vogue.
time is it?
Do the Vogue where you go like this. You go.
I've also realized hair is also a fun accessory just to keep your hands busy, but depending on the character, it can be helpful.
Can also be a weakness. You look at my TikTok, half of them I touch my hair and I'm like, stop it. You need to stop doing this.
You can also do the thing that we all did in like junior high when you're learning to draw, right? And you couldn't do hands. You just put them behind your back.
Yes, I
in the pockets.
Just behind the back for me. Just do the 2 little swoops for the arms and you don't have to wear the hands anymore.
Done.
Or just dress like an edgelord all the time, and then you can always pretend that people always keep their hands like this.
Yes, just sleeves over.
Oh, no, if you get the hoodies that have like the little hole.
But then you have to draw
Uh-huh.
fingers again.
Yeah, then no, because
then
then
it's
you've
only
just got
little
the
nubs.
mittens. So you've just got the
Oh,
thumb
okay.
and then the little like bloop, like.
The Dawson's Creek is also what it's known as because they didn't always have the hole, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm thinking also of it. I did a shoot where it was our introductory shoot, and we were walking around the Arboretum, and we came across this little cute bridge with like a little crick and everything like that. And she had like a cardigan sweater on. And at some point, she was like halfway taking off, and I was like, no, keep it there. Like, just had that Dawson's Creek feel. And I was like, I just need you to like look into the distance and just like. I think I even tried to play the song.
Oh my God. Well, we were talking about music with photo shoots earlier. We know it helps us. Is it distracting for photographers? Do y'all
God,
love
no.
it? Good.
I mean, personally, I like it because it kind of gives you can get a flow with it. It also, for me, gives something to distract part of my brain too. So like you kind of get into it more. And again, like
yay.
with the music, something to concentrate on because the harder thing, not the harder thing, but you can see it sometimes if somebody's trying to make the like if you're like, give me a pouty look, right?
I struggle with that so
Or
much.
any kind of look for that matter. But
Yeah.
like, a lot of people are like,
Anything that's not like a
Right?
smile is just hard. We're just like Ari, for example. I struggle so hard with her because she has like this like I'm better than you like pout kind of a look, and I I think I'm kind of doing it, but then we're just like I feel like I look stupid right now.
It looks like you do. Just so it looks like you're doing it and you're great. It doesn't.
And there are like times
never
where
thought you
just have to,
didn't
like,
know.
I breathe and I just have to like okay.
It translates very well, I promise you.
I feel like I'm just doing all the weirdest faces to get to it, and then like
do the weird faces though. It'll help.
Yes, our
Work
photographers
those
are always
muscles.
just like, are you okay? Like, okay, let's take a few more pictures because Ari wasn't ready.
Ari's glitching out right now.
But yeah.
But the opposite with Evelyn, where I'm like, I shall not smile.
Yeah.
Or like Widowmaker, do not smile. And then Starfire, it's like, don't be serious. And just like, ah, shit.
Yeah, you do
just
all these
depends.
different characters. Yeah.
And then if you break it, it just it looks weird and it feels weird.
right.
Well, and I always think that if you are able to do that, you know, if you're somebody who smiles all the time, trying to like deadpan it, right? It's hard because that's what you're concentrating on.
Yeah.
And so you get this like,
Like a constipated look or what?
no, it's just, it doesn't,
It just looks
for me,
unnatural.
it doesn't
Yeah.
feel right. Yeah. And so
Forced.
Yeah.
like music is good because you can start to kind of lose yourself into the character who's listening, like by listening to the music, it's distracting you. My thoughts. You just want to let it flow naturally. So if you can distract the part of the brain that's questioning, am I doing this right? Do I look ridiculous? I always think I look ridiculous. So I just go with it at that point of just like, you know, and it calms down.
Oh my
the
gosh, I
rest.
turned left.
Yeah.
I'm not an ambi-turner.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Just let it go.
if it all feels natural though, I always feel that it you can tell, you know, and having that comfort level in music, you know, it definitely helps with that because if you're just standing around hearing the click,
Yeah.
you're fully in the instead of being in your character or in the mood or like the music, excuse me, not the mood. You're hearing the clicking. You know, you're paying attention to the lighting. It's this again coming from somebody with ADHD that I have to listen to music to distract the squirrel part of my brain or the raccoon part of my brain.
Well, and making playlists that fit your character is really helpful.
So helpful.
I probably every time I like come up with an idea of like, oh, maybe I want to eventually cosplay this person, I just sort of like hop onto, I use Spotify, but whatever you use, and just start making playlists. We actually have a cutting edge cosplays, a couple of Spotify playlists. If you guys want, we've got some like pre-curated for different character types. Maybe not for your individual character, but if it's something along the vibe, we've probably got one for you. And if you are looking for something different, let us know and we can get one started too. And
Because
we'll do it for you and you don't have to worry about
some base for it.
True.
So,
Yeah.
Love the segue into the shameless plug, but like for real, the playlists are actually so
They're
good.
really
I was literally
helpful.
listening to one on my way here. they're actually really good.
Yeah.
I will say it also is great for behind the scenes too. So
Yeah.
if you're doing videos
Yeah.
of behind the scenes, you're
Yeah.
not just hearing, okay, now you need to turn left.
It's more immersive and everybody feels more involved. It feels
Yeah.
like you're more in a movie or more just like appropriate to the setting.
right.
And see, like that's again, my whole thing is just comfort levels. Like you want to be comfortable. Excuse me, like all parties want to.
I will be comforted.
Embodied.
Yeah, you could do.
Just charging up. This
Comfort's
isn't
over
even-
9,000.
This isn't even
Pillow
my
intensifiers. I wanted to go back to what you were saying about the conventions just a little bit because I feel like I don't do a lot of group shoots at conventions anymore just because I'm pretty comfortable with the group that I've built around myself at this point. When you first start going to conventions, I think group shoots are great because they'll help you find like-minded people and photographers who are interested in shooting that kind of shot anyways. But I do still try to look for photographers at conventions because I feel like there's some like newer photographers who might not know how to get their name out there yet who go to them that are really talented and good to work with. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good networking tool, I feel like, going to shoots at conventions. I totally see why you wouldn't want to. But I don't think anybody should be discouraged from shooting at conventions.
Yeah, no, personally, like I love conventions. I'm just not as big of a fan of shooting at conventions.
I feel the same because
Me
normally
too.
when I'm at a convention, I'm like on another level in a lot of ways. But like where I'm just running around, I'm trying to go to panels and I'm trying to like enjoy the convention and focus on things. So even though I might be dressed up in a costume, I'm not necessarily like focused on, okay, I want to take photos. It's like, if you ask me for a photo, yeah, that sounds great. But I'm probably like focused on, I want to do this, and this. And so I already have like my schedule planned out. Like, so I'm not necessarily thinking of the photographer side of things or like anything really related to like my costume, just kind of more, I'm dressed up to have fun and like enjoy the panels that are available to me and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Often you get, I got my weapon is piece bonded. I have my little tag for the con on me.
Yeah.
Which is not part of the character, obviously.
people
got
in
Wait, but
background.
what if the character went to
Yeah.
con?
right. Yeah.
That's so
Good
meta.
point. I mean, my Harley, like, that's definitely something she'd do. She's like, yeah, let's go, like, check out these people and do these things. And, like, sure, whatever. Like, wait, why are you taking my gun? But sure, whatever, fine.
Maybe.
If
But
God
you
lets me get
definitely
in
took
here.
that picture at a convention.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
maybe.
And there are some con shots where it's like iconic to be near whatever landmark item there is at a convention. And it's just like, oh, they attended there and people can find you there and be like, oh, I remember you seeing you there. And it's the same background that 200 other people are going to have plus, probably more than 200 people. And there's going to be people in the background and there's things that you can't control for that you could control for in an outside of con shoot.
But it's kind of got that built-in thing that Travis was saying where I've met you before. I know that we have this kind of rapport already, and it's like an easy way in to be like, hey, we shot together at the convention. I really enjoyed that experience. Would you want to do a shoot
Outside.
elsewhere?
Yeah.
And then you can kind of like
Or
build in all the lighting and music and everything else
Yeah.
in your own free time.
for personal opinion is just like anything inside of the con always feels like it's an event photo, not an immersive experience. Like you're part of it.
Yeah.
For some reason, I keep going back to like Splash Mountain, right? That photo that they give you at the end. I'm not saying anything
iconic.
bad about any photographer. They're catching you in the moment of excitement there, right? But if you were dressed up in a costume that fit Splash Mountain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, now I really want to do that. It's just
All right.
More than any, my brain is there right
Space
now, and I'm
Mountain.
just like, oh, let's go. Space Mountain was closed when I went. I was so crushed.
if you get the chance though, Euro Disney. It's
Oh.
like $28.
Love to go to your.
It was I think €35. You can take a train from Paris to Euro Disney. They have Alice in Wonderland's maze there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I have it all.
Guys, cancel all our plans. We're going to Paris.
Yeah, so
now.
clear your calendars for August. We're going.
Yeah, and no one was there. I went, it was snowing, and they have the Ratatouille ride, which is actually super
Wait,
awesome.
hold on. No, what is in the
I hope
Ratatouille
they have a
ride?
restaurant.
The Ratatouille restaurant?
Yeah,
Do
is
they?
there?
I don't
There has to be because there's
I
like
don't remember, but it's a 3D, it's a 3D, or it's an immersive roller coaster that I'm not sure if you're moving or not. But basically,
like
we live in the future.
yeah, it's a whole like IMAX feel, and you're in a little cart, and you're following. I think you're following Remy through the whole thing. So you're like ducking in
Like those
under
4D
stuff.
things.
And every once in a while, there's like the little spray of water where you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
Or
I was
6.
4.
I was
and I
5.
4.
Yeah, first time I went. And
That's like an early memory then.
yeah. Well, okay, no, my parents try to claim that the first time I went was when my mom was like 7 months pregnant with. Yeah, she was. No. They let her on every single ride except for the submarine, which is like a rest ride anyway. Where you just like it barely goes like an
The
inch
submarine was
underground.
the best, and I don't think it's around anymore.
No, it's not. But it was the only one where they're like, no, you're not fat with a fanny pack. You're actually like pregnant. You can't come on this ride.
Fat, did you say fat with a fanny pack?
That's how she went on all of the other rides. She went on all kinds of rides while she was like 7 or 8 months pregnant with me. But she wasn't allowed on the submarine.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Are you pregnant?
Are you just
No.
fanny pack? Oh my god.
I just want to say for the record, I'm super happy that I came on.
I'm so glad.
No, she just wore it, and she would get stuff from the gift store and hold it in a bag in front of her.
Oh.
Bunny's mom played the fucking game, okay?
Yes.
Like, I'm sorry. I'm here to have a good time.
She had an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old son, like two sons. They're 11 and 12. They're like riding all the rides. She wants to ride the rides with them. She's just like holding little gift bags in front of her stomach with a fanny pack. It was great, but the submarine, she could not go on that ride, even though it was like a rest ride.
Well, it
this
goes
makes it-
underwater. There's a lot of pressure
Only
there.
like an inch, but. But yeah, so no, that one doesn't count. The first time I went, I was 4 years old, so I went on a bunch of the rides, but I was too small for Splash Mountain. And then when I went again when I was like 11 or 12 or something, it was closed for maintenance. And then I went again as like a celebration for like graduating college, and it was just me and my parents. And I actually got a call from my work for promotion while I was like, yeah, it was like, you know, when you're running like the lines at the very end when it's like trying to close, like shut down, you're like, I can get one more ride in. And so it was like running from the end of the Indiana Jones ride to the beginning of it again. And I got a call from work because I didn't have service inside of the Indiana Jones ride because you're like kind of
So
underground.
disappointing.
Yeah,
right. How
and
dare
so,
they?
Yeah.
yeah, so they left me a message, and so I called them back like right before I'm about to run back onto the ride again. They're like, "Oh yeah, we want to give you a promotion." I was like, "Yes, best vacation ever." And
Oh my
but that was like the only time I was able to actually go on Splash Mountain was after I graduated college.
So
But,
We're going.
The celebration
Yeah.
splash.
So
Yes.
I think it was like my 13th or 14th birthday when I was still living in LA. We, my folks, family, we went to Disneyland, and my parents swear that my uncle is the reason that Splash Mountain got shut down.
Do tell.
So a lot of people flash, I guess, when they do Unsplash Mountain.
Oh, that makes a lot
When
of
they
sense,
drop
actually.
down, they flash.
They flash
My
at the
uncle-
splash. Sorry, go ahead.
So my uncle, who has very pretty long blonde hair, as they're going down, decides to pull his shirt all the way up. They said they got halfway down the waterfall, and all of a sudden the whole ride stopped.
Oh my god.
They were pretty sure somebody hit the emergency button to stop it. So they got to go walk through the whole backside of Splash Mountain.
Do you get stuck?
Yeah, well,
get
because it's
How do you stay in?
I remember. So this was like, oh god, man, this was years ago, many years ago.
Because that was before they had like any kind of belts or anything, right?
I
It
don't
was
think
just
they
like
have
you're like
belts anymore.
straddling a thing,
Belt.
you just got the bars on the
Could
side,
you imagine?
right?
You flash the screen, they hit the brakes, and you just go flying into the
Well, no, I mean you're still gonna slide down. I heard though that you can't cosplay in Disney, which is disappointing.
You can't.
That is true.
No, because
There are
it
rules.
ruins the experience for the children.
Well, and you have to be in character, and you have to be like doing the voices. And doing the
if you're doing
interactions.
something questionable that they don't condone.
Yeah.
So you can Disney bound, which is like similar silhouette or similar colors or like theme, but it can't be. There's like some sort of a person
clearly
who's in charge of saying if
inspired
you're
by-
too close.
Well, they have
to
a
being
day
that
though.
replica.
I thought where you can actually. It's like once a
That'd
year.
be cool. Oh,
I haven't heard of a single day that people can go to it like dressed up. I've never heard that. I've known a couple of people who have worked there, and they said that everything is very strictly controlled regarding the characters.
Yeah. Well, I know you're supposed to point with 4 fingers.
Yeah, things
stuff
like that.
Then
Probably
If we
is.
go, we should Disney bound.
I'd be so down.
Wait,
for that.
okay.
See how close
you
we can get
already
before they
have
turn
a
us
few.
around.
be?
I do.
Who should we be if we Disney bound?
Snow White.
Wait, I wonder.
I've actually
Wait,
done
Alice.
Snow White before too.
Would they kick me out if I
Do
brought
something
armored
different.
Snow White?
We
to
should all
the
That
do
is
something
different.
new.
So
Yeah,
that's
because
something
you look
new.
too
Okay.
close.
Absolutely.
I
But
don't
if you
know.
could do it and pull the sword from the
Is
stone,
this
that would
a
be amazing.
16-year-old German girl's face?
Okay, so but your Snow White though is armored, whereas mine's more like
I can't bring her on
accurate.
any rides, and I really love rides, so never mind.
I mean, mine was like super like Goodwill-ish, but but
Don't downplay your cosplay like that. It's amazing.
but I mean, like yours would probably be more acceptable for like a Disney bound thing because it's not as like Disney video focused. It's like an armored, more accurate to like the story version.
And it
too
takes away
on the
from their
nose.
story.
So,
It's super identifiable.
Yeah.
Rather than someone, say, wearing a blue blouse and a red skirt, which is like in Snow White's colors, but it's not Snow White, then that would pass. Or like there's folks like who are redheads and they'll do like 2 little braids. But if you're wearing colors that are too close to Anna from Frozen, they'll tell you to go change.
Yeah.
So it just depends. They won't let you in.
Also, Bears,
I
have
don't know.
you
I've
thought
never
about
worked for Disney,
LARPing
but-
in your Snow White?
I've never LARPed before.
Nor
don't
have
know
I, but I
how.
do really want to see you just like running with the cardboard sword at someone.
Yes.
Okay, if people are in the Pacific Northwest and want to set me up with how to LARP, message me and I'll
Girl,
do
you
it.
know someone.
Joe. He doesn't LARP though.
Why, he could teach you the skills to do it.
I know because I took sword fighting from him
I
for
know.
like a year and a half.
I know.
I know how to sword fight.
Yes, you're half. CEC does LARP. Stay tuned.
It's just us fighting each other.
Why not? Why not? Why not? We've done pillow fights.
Bunny will do bow and
Sword
arrow.
fight.
I'll do a sword, and you'll be like a magician.
Yes.
We're just throwing glitter
the
at us
claws
from
or like a
afar.
battle axe or some. Yeah, who knows? Oh my gosh. Why not? Why
Picture her
not?
throwing glitter.
I know glitter with like the Evelyn
Fireball.
claws. Just this is evil, but also like fabulous at the same time.
You blind them and then you go.
Pocket sand. I mean, magic.
There's a great TikTok video of someone blinding someone with sand. They just put sand in their palm. And they go, ha! Because they get sand in their eyes, and it's great.
You know, like that's also a really good question to think about. Is just like, what are you trying to showcase? You know, are you trying to showcase like your skills with the craft, or you know, a particular weapon that you made, your how close you resemble the character as you know in the cartoon, whatever, the video game type of thing. So like that also goes with the whole. What are you looking for and what kind of shots are you wanting and having a little bit of trust and everything like that.
Oh, and that's a good thing. So if somebody asks you, oh, what are you looking for with this shoot? Keep that in mind. If you're trying to showcase a specific part of it, like let people know. It's not like, oh, I just want it to look kind of cool and like, remember, like, no, it's be like, I made this glowing spine piece that I'm really proud of, and I would like to showcase that on this shoot. That was a great tangent.
But see, that's the thing though,
Helpful
is like,
tangent.
is having a bunch of photographers or models, right, who all have different strengths and understanding that like, I don't really shoot weddings. Like I don't, it's not that I don't like to, it's a lot of stress. And
it's a different skill set too.
oh god, yes. And I've
It's a
shot
people
like
management thing. Which
Oh
is
yeah.
well,
It depends on your bride. If you
different
only have
things to negotiate too. Like if you're just, it is a cosplay shoot, like you're probably just shooting me. We're not going to worry about like, are you going to feed me and house me? And what times do I need to be specifically contractually obligated?
Yeah.
Which I guess is another thing. Like
that
what about
actually brings up
contract?
yeah, that brings up a really good point. I have started getting into contracts, right? Because there are times when it can save both parties' asses, right? There's also the point of having recourse if someone never provides you photos or releases photos you are not okay with, right? If, from my understanding, it's a little bit harder if you do not have contractual agreements. Also, if you're paying for it, right? And, you know, for example, when I do charge minus shooting time, editing is usually all on my own time, as well as travel. There are extenuating circumstances to that. But if you paid me for an afternoon of shooting, right? Afternoon can be very broad. That's from just afternoon at 12:01 to about 5:30, right? That's about the time you're getting into evening time, right? So that's 5.5 hours roughly, right? But some people could consider that 1 to 3, right? You know what I mean? But the last thing I would want is somebody to pay me like, I don't know, a couple $100, and what you're getting is 2 photos.
Right.
You know, 2 photos that are the same pose for the same outfit, you know? And I don't know. I mean, there's research to be done online, obviously, and everybody's different. Some people don't do contracts, which is, you know, their jam. Again, I don't do most of the time. I don't really care half the time, but I am starting to. But then you can kind of have something to fall back on. Personally, without a contract, I do usually reach out to someone and I'm like, hey, there's a line. I'm like, hey, are you okay with this one? Like, if it's maybe kind of goofy or if there's too much cleavage, right? Something that's rides the line of tasteful. Some people don't like that. They don't want to be shown that way. They're more for the artistic components or the craft, you know? And so
it's not their brand.
Correct. Yeah.
The way that I've often seen contracts used, and I'm sure that there are more aspects to this, which you guys who are more experienced can talk to. But the ways that I've signed contracts is often when the photographer wants to potentially use the photos for a publication. And then I sign a contract that is, I won't post anything until I get the okay to. And also I get some leeway in which ones I'm going to allow. And in most cases, it's like a Lightroom kind of situation where I'll go through and heart the ones that I liked, and then the only ones that are going to get edited are the ones that I have hearted. So that way there's like, the photographer doesn't have to edit every single one that I've hearted, obviously. But there's that kind of like collaboration in which ones we're both okay with. And then they are able to go and use that contract as a proof of consent to wherever they're trying to publish. Of like, yes, you can publish these photos. And then if they end up trying to apply for that publication, great. Then I'll just wait until that publication comes out to post any of the photos. And if they end up not, then they'll let me know and be like, post these whenever. Great. Okay. And then I've also gotten them in photo shoots that might be a little bit more risque. And which goes exactly back to your point of covering both of our butts of like, is there consent? Yes. We're both going to get a say. And it kind of gives us both reassurance that everything's going to go as planned. And also in paid shoots, I've seen contracts because that way we know what we're paying for.
Yeah, I would definitely for contracts for paid shoots. And I haven't, again, this goes back to the caring as much about it. But I think it is without a contract, the rights go to the photographer.
I've never looked this up, so I'm actually not sure.
I've heard mixed things because I've seen long Facebook threads kind of debating the same thing because it is kind of a gray area in terms of it's the photographer's image because you took the image,
right,
and it's the model's image and likeness.
Yeah.
And so there's some gray area, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it.
Correct. And I think that, you know, with a contract that covers your bases to an extent, or at least you can feel like justified. Both parties can feel justified, and there's no hard feelings because unfortunately, like, if you're doing this for money, it is a business. Everybody's trying to get their own, right? You want to try and keep feelings out of it. But if we have a contract together, we can still be friends outside of that and just kind of pissy about the contract is my belief about it, at least. You know, not everybody's like that, but definitely I think, you know, contracts can be good, especially for paid shoots. That's the big one, is that if you're dropping $400 for an afternoon, you know, for example, you're paying $400 for an afternoon. You are taking these shots. This isn't for cosplay, right? Or it could be. But let's say you're doing it for your partner. And it's for your anniversary type of thing, right? You need these photos before the end of the month.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to take the photos and you're going to make a scrapbook or something like that.
Sure.
Like something very sweet, right? But if you don't have that written out, then you don't really have much to go back on if the photographer doesn't give it to you for 6 months. Or the photographer, you're expecting, you know, 30 photos or 15 photos, right? And the photographer only gives you like 2.
Right.
There's no real recourse, and you feel as though you were kind of robbed about it, right? But I would think that a photographer will also have stipulations in there. Like, you have to understand that, like, sometimes you're not going to get 15 photos that are great.
Yeah. Right.
You may only get 2, you know?
So if there's no contract involved, how do you guys go about opening up the conversation about expectations, I guess? So what I'm thinking is like, okay, so we've just started a shoot. We've all just gotten here. We haven't started shooting yet, but you just kind of like want to know off the top of your head, like, so what's the timeline going to be for photos to be done? Like, how many photos am I going to end up with? Like, how do you go about opening up that conversation?
I usually try to do that before the shoot happens.
Okay.
Because that way we can go in with expectations. And, you know, earlier we talked about like riding this excitement wave, and then when something doesn't happen, we crash. And so if we know what we're expecting, we can avoid some of that crash. If there's going to be a crash situation, not always. But so I might say like, I really want these photos of like Bunny Evelyn before Easter, you know, and I'd like to post them before that. And so then the photographer knows, okay, this is my timeline. This is when they're expecting photos back. The number is, you know, variable. Sometimes I'll ask, oh, how many do you typically give back? Or I've worked with them enough to kind of know if somebody's going to give back 3 versus 200, you know.
See, but
that kind of thing.
that's a really good question to ask, as opposed to, you know, it's the how many do you usually give back, and there's usually a range as opposed to like, hey, so I'm expecting, you know, 30 good shots, right?
Exactly 30, no more, no less. Yeah.
And they need to be an 8 or above. Like,
Right. Yike.
It's like, baby, this is a two-way street, man, and you are not posing good today.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then I find it helpful if somebody does the Lightroom, you know, scenario where they're like, please go heart your top 20.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to choose my top 10 from your top 20, because then that actually is a really good strategic move for both of you, because that says the model already likes these 20, which means they're more likely to post it, which means both of you are getting exposure, and the photographer is not going to edit pictures that the model is not going to want to post. And so it's a really good strategy.
Well, and see, I started doing that with a lot of models, partially because then there's no hemming and hawing over which ones to do.
Yeah.
I will also admit slightly that it's to cut down work on my part.
Absolutely.
Because if we do,
Sure.
if we do 2 hours and we get like 400 to 500, that's a lot of work for 400 shots. And there may be 3 poses of like, and I'm going to be like, look, all 3 of these look good.
They look the same.
Yeah.
Well, no. It's not that they look the same though. Like you have to also understand as being a brand, what are you going for?
Right.
And then with all of the other photos that you've liked, what story are you trying to tell with the photos that you're liking? Because sometimes, it's a great photo, right? But it does not fit your brand at all, right? Like a laughing Evelyn. Like
Right.
just laughing with tears streaming down the eyes. Like,
Right.
great shot, right? But you're not going to use it for anything other than like, maybe you just want to have it.
Sure. Yeah. Which happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also like, I think, it makes it easier on the photographer. And you also get to see everything. But I've found that like not every photographer does that. Sometimes they will give you only like a list of, the ones that they think are good. Another thing, actually, sorry, just to remember to bring up, like I tend to show photos as we're going through the shoot.
Which I love.
Do
So
that.
helpful.
Always do that, please. It's
What-
so helpful as the model to know how I'm looking.
And like, oh shoot, I should probably do this instead of
Yeah.
this.
Or my wig is sliding back. Let me hike it forward again.
Yeah.
Or,
Or I'm nailing this.
yes, this is great. Let's
Keep
go.
doing this.
Yeah, but there are photographers that don't do that, and that's
Yes.
because it has to do with the way that they edit, and so like the shot, the shot out the camera versus the final shot can be wildly different, and it's not that they're modifying anything; it's the coloration that they do and certain editing techniques. So they may not see it, but you can always feel free to ask, like, "Hey, can we? I just want to see like." How I feel about that look, because with you talking about
Right.
Hey, can
what
I
am I
take a
doing
look
with
at
my
that?
hands? Do I have raccoon hands right now? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, so I think always asking, if you're curious about how you look, there's that. The other thing that I've also started doing, and a model could do this, is full length mirror.
Yes.
So helpful.
So we've done that with a few of our shoots more recently, which was Danny's idea, by the way. And it has been so helpful. Another thing that she's done too is for poses, she actually prints out the photo. Oh my gosh. And then like she'll she'll tape it to like the bottom of a ring light or like and put it in front of our photographer or
true.
something so we can
I
Okay,
use a tablet to do that.
Yes,
Search
it's
online.
so
where it's
helpful.
like-
Yeah, because like we'll have all of these different like
Reference photos on
reference
your phone.
photos online, but they're in different media streams. Like some will be in Instagram and some will be in Messenger and whatever. And then so you're trying to search through to find like this particular pose and you can't find it or you don't have service or whatever. But the fact that she actually prints it out is and it helps so much. Plus, she's got that like full length mirror. So we're like, okay, so this photo looks like this. And okay, I need to adjust like this. Okay, the photographer is there. Okay, let's adjust over this way. And
But the light's over there.
it makes everything so much easier. Like just actually having printouts and a
live
mirror and
feedback.
everything.
There's
Yeah.
lots of
Yeah.
like little tricks that you can use to like make sure that everybody's feeling super comfortable and happy.
Yes,
Well, and
along with the music.
Sometimes having
music,
like a Pinterest type board
Yes.
is really helpful because
Absolutely.
not only can you get the poses, you can get the feeling.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I have absolutely no idea how to use it in words where it's just like I want gloomy, right? I
want this.
distraught, right? Yeah. And so like
A moo right now. Just
but you can have the same pose of, doing one of these, right? And depending on like the coloration, the lighting, it can go from like Vogue to, high school portraits, senior year portraits, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It can
Sears catalog.
yeah.
Yes.
And so
Just super emo.
yeah. But you having an idea of what it is you want, but also the photographer, like because they can readjust, they can also hopefully make the connection. Like when they're taking the photo, like remembering later on, like, oh, we need to make this just a little bit more damn it, Fallout Boy. Like
We get
Lost
a
the
little more
word.
panic.
Panic
At the disco.
A little less disco.
I like
Never
how-
apologize for Fall Out Boy. Ever.
it's just hearing the song.
Yeah.
Play.
Thanks for the memories.
I've got high hopes for this.
The other thing too to do, not just finding looks that you like, but practicing them in the mirror. Even just your facial, features. To facial features, like
Yes,
facial
but
expressions,
yes, expressions.
right?
I know what you mean. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands, and then my face doesn't do the right things. Yes.
Where you start standing there, you're like, what do I even do with these things? Who gave them to me?
I'm just gonna slap the base. It's fine.
But you're right. Practicing in the mirror can make a big difference. Even if it's just a matter of, earlier we had talked about if you go to a con, have like 3 to 5 go-to poses, like quick haul photos. And same thing with your face. Like, know how your character's face would normally act. And if you're Widowmaker, you're not going to smile. Same with if you're Starfire, you're probably not going to be super depressed. And just know your character well enough to know how that reads on camera, how far you have to go. Because like we said, sometimes you have to overact for it to look normal on camera. And at what point, where is that line,
Yeah, and I mean, I would say with the cosplay, there is probably a wide berth of what you can and can't do, right? Starfire may not be depressed, but there may be a version of Starfire who is
angsty.
Yes,
and there are. Yes, there are.
And so I guess I would think that practicing stuff that feels comfortable to whatever character you're playing.
Right.
So Travis, if you were to give advice to someone who's going into their first cosplay photo shoot, what are the most important things for them to know?
Bring your own snacks.
Bring your snacks.
Yes.
That honestly is super valuable.
Snacks with an X.
Snacks.
I would say the biggest thing is kind of think of what you want to do. Like, what are you trying to portray here? What would you like to see out of it? What would make you happy? And kind of as almost I don't want to say 50%, but like figure out what in the glass half full that you can do that would make it good, and then let the photographer do the other 50% to give you a full glass of awesome mimosa.
I love that.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I just figured,
Thematic. It's thematic.
Over there.
Yep.
and kind of be within reason, of course. Be open, to listening, because while there are things that I've been asked to do when I've done a shoot once or twice as a other side of the camera, that I was just like, I don't understand it, right? But asked to see afterwards, sometimes they'll ask you for a ridiculous pose, the comic book pose, if you will.
Right.
Yes.
What was that called? It was called
Flexibility is key in all aspects.
the Hawkeye
and
Initiative
mentally.
is what I think it was actually called. If you ever saw when they did the gender reversal.
Yes, I did. Yes.
It was on Tumblr. It was
it's
loved it.
brilliant.
If I remember correctly, it was this gal who took Hawkeye and put him into all of these ridiculous poses, and then started adding other male comic book characters doing those poses where it was just like the weird.
It just doesn't make
showing your
sense.
butt,
Like booty,
chest.
booty, 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 rocking everywhere.
Yeah.
You gotta show the assets.
Dislocate your back
assets.
so you can arch this way, but also look that way, and it just doesn't work.
Also props though. See, sometimes props can work for something like that. Like
Yeah.
using your environment to your benefit. Not
True.
saying that you necessarily should be up for doing the whole like really weird thing, but like if you're
Sure.
trying to do a leg up, like
yeah.
maybe not having to hold it yourself. Yeah, I would think just go into it understanding it's a collaboration. I would hope your photographer does this as well.
Yeah.
That you're both trying to make something. And I always find, at least from my work, when we're both invested in it, we get a better product. If we're both happy with what we're doing, the outcome comes out a lot better. If I'm really stoked on something, but the model isn't, or they're just kind of like, right? It doesn't come out as well. Neither one of us feels happy about it, or feels as happy as maybe we should,
Kind of to that point, I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off a little bit, but I was thinking back to like showing off pictures. When the photographer starts showing me pictures and they're like, oh my God, this one is so good. And then they show you and you're like, oh, that is so good. And so like their excitement gets you excited, and then your excitement gets them excited. And like you kind of like play off of each other. Like
Absolutely.
that kind of made me think of that. It was like, feed off of each other's energy and like, let's make this awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, like, and also if you feel uncomfortable with the photographer, find somebody you feel comfortable with. Like it's not the end all be all, especially if you're doing TFP, trade for photos. Like there are tons of photographers in every different type of photography style that'll want to work with you, you know? So again, if you don't feel comfortable, like find somebody you feel comfortable with, because like that is key, you know, comfort and communication.
You'll get better photos that way too, for sure. Yeah. Like the more comfortable you are with someone, the more willing you are to do like the weird poses that you weren't expecting.
Yeah. Comfort and communication seems to be the go home.
I would say don't feel, search out your friends too. Because if you have friends who are starting in photography, sometimes it's really good. Like if you're both starting at the same time, you can see how you both have grown. And always understand that like a shoot can be redone within reason. But most shoots can be redone. You can do it with somebody else. Like, you know, it's if you mess up, oh well, learn from it, you know, or if you feel that you messed up. And honestly, most people are harder on themselves than everyone else is.
Absolutely.
You know,
in all aspects.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going to see the flaws of, say, your outfit before anyone else is. Like the frayed, you know, thread, right? That no one else is going to see, like the little tiny one right here.
That you kind of knew was there, but you're like, nobody's going to notice it. It's fine. And then all the pictures come out and you're like, oh, great. That's the only thing I see. That is what you're
staring at.
Yeah.
So. And if it's something, you know, small enough, it can be cloned out. There's also that. So don't worry about it during the shoot. You know, maybe let your photographer know you have an issue with it. Or if there's a part, like we had talked about before, if there's a part of your body that you feel uncomfortable with, right? Let the photographer know, because they may have poses you don't know about in order to accentuate or like spots that you love, or take away from spots that you don't care for. You know, like if somebody has an issue with their stomach, you're not going to make them do squatting where we're just going to accentuate, you know what I mean?
Oh God. Yeah.
And that's an extreme, you know, point
but
there.
Still,
but
something to be aware of and have on your radar.
Yes.
And if you're a photographer and your model is doing something that you know is never going to look good, please tell them that they do not.
After the first couple photos.
Yeah. But like, I mean, be gentle about it.
They may not know.
Be gentle about it, but maybe let them know what and why that thing that they're doing isn't working. I don't know. Maybe you guys have a different feel about it, but I personally, I want to know exactly why what I'm doing isn't working. I want you to tell me, like, no, that makes your belly look huge. Don't do that. I personally want to know that. And I know that not everybody wants to hear that specific feedback. So maybe feel it out with your model. But
communication.
So Bears, one of the things, because that can be a very touchy subject about like, hey, can you like, no one says this, but like if someone were to say, hey, you suck it in just a little bit, right? That can just ruin the whole shoot. But instead, like, hey, can you stand up straighter for me?
Okay.
Can you pitch your hips back and put your chest forward? And
if you shift your hips forward, roll your shoulders back, and then drop them down, like it can change exactly how somebody looks.
So instead of the feedback of what you're doing isn't working, give them ideas of what they can do to improve it.
Here's how
or
this can be
suggest
better.
an alternate pose altogether.
Changing the pose as opposed to bringing out the area helps a lot more, because if you start pointing out like, hey, so we took this we took this shot, your stomach's looking a little pudgy, like can you change how you're standing? So then the model is now concerned about their stomach, which is probably not as bad, right? Understanding how poses work, doing your research about it is very, very helpful. The other thing sometimes you can do is with showing the model the photo, because they are probably going to notice before you do, right? Because I think Bears and I have done this where they've called out something that they didn't like about it.
My character flaw is I say all my thoughts out loud. So I'll look at a photo and I'll be like, oh, I like it, but my tummy looks too big, so I'm going to try something different. But I'll say that for like every little thing, and I'm sure it's annoying for photographers. I'm so sorry, but I just say it out loud so that I can conceptualize what I need to work on. Be like, okay,
no, but that can be beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then I know what you're not liking at the point, as opposed to you being like, if you go, I'm
Then
not
you're
gonna know
not
what the
sure
hell
what
that
I'm looking
means.
at.
Exactly.
Again, communication.
Communication is key.
Thank you so much, Travis, for joining us and giving us your insight and your expertise.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate your perspective, for real.
Yes.
Thank you.
So check out Travis's work on Instagram. You can reach him at lost_ape7. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Do we wave?
Bye.